Hey Fae folk, welcome back. So for today's video, we're going to be discussing why it is that you all like Barbie. Not too long ago, I did a video where I hypothesized why different doll brands might draw us in. I talked about Barbie, Bratz, Monster High, and Rainbow High, but those were just my theories. So I obviously had to follow that up by actually asking you all over on my community tab what it is that you like about Barbie. And huge shout out to everyone who did reply, because obviously this type of video wouldn't be possible if I got zero answers. So thank you for those of you who did respond. But I have some intel now, I have some insights, and I've narrowed it down to the top 3 reasons why people are most likely to sort of feel connected to Barbie as a doll and as a brand. There were definitely more reasons given, but I was trying to focus on just the most popular ones. So if your reason isn't listed here, it's nothing personal, just I was trying to do the things that seemed like most people were resonating with. Also, if this style of video sounds fun to you, but you're not particularly interested in Barbie, or maybe you're just a bigger fan of another brand, we are going to be going through the other brands that I discussed in my video, just like this. So we're going to be doing Bratz, Monster High, and Rainbow High still. Bratz is going to be up next, and I will have a community post up as you are watching this. If you're watching this when it's a nice fresh video asking you all why you love Bratz. So if you are a Bratz fan, please feel free to head over there and tell me why, so that I can do a video like this for Bratz. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into why we love Barbie. So the first reason that technically speaking you could call 2 reasons that people seem to love Barbie is that Barbie can be anything, and you can also make Barbie anything. And yes, I do think that there is a distinction, and I will be using a couple of your comments, some quotes from there, to sort of illustrate what I mean by that. So Aaron's Dollhouse, shout out, said she can be a career woman, she can wear high fashion, she can be in the modern age and going to the mall, she can also be a fairy or mermaid. And this is something that I have talked about on the channel before. There are so many different Barbies. Barbie is not just one thing, when you look at Monster High, Draculaura is Draculaura. When it comes to Generation 1, she's just a vampire. When it comes to Generation 3, she's a vampire and a witch. But that's sort of it. She's sort of set into that role because she is a much more characterized character. Whereas because Barbie is a little looser with it, she can be anything. And that for years was such a huge selling point for Barbie. And I definitely think it still is now, but I feel I don't know, Mattel doesn't push that aspect as much necessarily, but Barbie can literally be anything. There's entire pages on the internet dedicated to listing all of the different careers that Barbie has been in and all the different things that she's done. So Barbie is not just one dimensional. Barbie is not just, hey, here's your doll, here's Barbie the doctor, and that's it. Barbie can literally be whatever she wants to be, and she has been innumerable things throughout the years. As another person put it, the options are endless. You don't have to love them all, but there is at least one Barbie for you. And I do think that that's honestly a fair statement, just because Barbie has, again, been so many different things throughout the years. It's very likely that there's at least one Barbie that might catch your fancy. Maybe you prefer dolls in casual dress, and Barbie has countless dolls like that for you to choose from. Maybe you like dolls in gowns, and guess what? Barbie has those too. If you like fairies, if you like mermaids, if you like even space-agey stuff, they have not done that quite as much, but there have been a few iterations of Barbie as an astronaut, and even a few iterations of Barbie doing something a little bit more otherworldly and a little bit more alien. So there are literally, as this person said, countless options for what Barbie can be. But the other half of that statement is that you can make Barbie anything. So when I say Barbie can be anything, I'm sort of saying that as the doll, as the character, she's not locked into one role, right? She can decide that she's going to put on a different career hat for the day and be something different for the day. But the other thing is that because Barbie is a bit of a blank slate and doesn't necessarily have a super strict character, you can put whatever your imagination wants to onto Barbie. I thought the way this commenter put it was quite succinct. When playing with a Little Mermaid doll, she can really only ever be Ariel. When playing with a Barbie, she can be whoever you choose for her to be. Whether that happens to be a character from the Barbie movies, or just other Barbie media that there is, or whether that's a character from a different TV show that you saw that maybe you want to imagine your Barbie is embodying, or if you want to create your own entirely original character for your Barbie, because she can be so many things, she can put on so many hats, and because she is, again, a little bit more of a blank slate, that means that your creativity really and truly has no bounds with Barbie. You can make her be whatever you want. And technically speaking, this is true. Again, we'll just use Draculaura as the example. You could pretend Draculaura is something other than a vampire, but I do think Barbie's essence just sort of makes that a little bit easier. And especially because, as we will get to in a little bit, there are so many different types of Barbies, so many different like diversities that Barbie has. I do think it makes it a little bit easier to put that like imagination play onto her and make her whatever you want her to be. One other thing that I did want to highlight, one other comment from you all that I thought was also really, really important to incorporate into this, element of Barbie can be anything. And that is the aspect of Barbie core. This person said you can be a scientist and have a glittery pink microscope, or be a firefighter with pink and purple hair. And I do think that that is honestly something that so many of us loved about Barbie, especially in some previous eras. She definitely fiddles with Barbie core nowadays, but there was a long period of time where Barbie sort of tried to eschew her own Barbie core image. We're not going to get into that today because this is supposed to be more of like a upbeat, oh my gosh, this is why we love Barbie video. But I do think that there's really and truly something to be said about the fact that there are eras of Barbie where she is an astronaut and she also wears pink constantly and only wants to wear pink. She can be all of these impressive, amazing things and still love glitter and still love getting her nails done and still love makeup and still love doing her hair. And I do think that in certain circles, there is this sort of separation of those two things where it's expected that if you like all of these stereotypically girly things, that's sort of all you can ever amount to. And you're almost defined as being like less intelligent or more airheaded. Whereas if you like math or science or you're super smart or you love to read, that's separate and you can't also be girly pop. And that's simply not true. You absolutely can be someone who values your physical appearance and has fun taking care of yourself and trying out new fashions and who likes the color pink and also be insanely intelligent and well read and smart and creative. And those two things aren't opposites. They aren't like mutually exclusive, but a lot of people do treat them like they are. And so I do think that, again, for the period of time where Barbie was doing much more, much more Barbie core, I think that that was really cool to get to see her still being all of these things while also retaining that girly pop element that just feels natural to Barbie. But that brings us to our second reason that people love Barbie, which is something that I alluded to just a little bit ago, and that is her diversity. Barbie, I feel like, used to just be the blonde haired, blue eyed girl on the shelves, but nowadays, Barbie can be anything, and that anything includes being like any skin color, having any hair texture, having any eye color, and also disabilities. We have Barbies that have prosthetic legs, Barbies in wheelchairs, we have Barbies with Down syndrome, and it's really genuinely just incredible how much diversity Barbie does have. Yes, you can talk about Barbie's lack of consistency and lack of quality, but at the end of the day, Barbie is an unbelievably diverse doll brand, especially when you compare it to her competitors. Like, not that the competitors are all doing terrible in terms of a diversity, definitely some are better than others, but it does feel like Barbie is sort of unparalleled in that regard. To quote one of you all, I love Barbie because of their diversity. I love how I can have Barbie in so many different skin tones, hair colors, and style, the height and body types. I love that there are so many Barbies with disability, which add more diversity into my collection. And I do think that that's something that's really, really important to highlight. And I want to say, like, it's not that having diversity in skin tone is not also important. Okay. That is obviously a huge, huge deal. But I do think for some people, that's sort of where it begins and ends when it comes to diversity. Like, that might be all we think about is representing people with, like, again, different skin tones or different hair types and that sort of thing. But diversity does mean so, so much more than that. As someone else put it, I love how Barbie has dolls of any phenotype and isn't afraid to make dolls with mental disabilities. And I totally agree. I mentioned the Down syndrome Barbies. We recently had an autism Barbie. And, like, again, I know that there has been like controversy around some of these releases because it can be hard to draw the line between where representation is good and bad. I probably am going to talk about the autism Barbie specifically in a later video, but I guess my brief viewpoint is that as long as the representation is not actively harmful, then I think having some representation that is at least accurate to some people is better than having no representation at all. Obviously, that goes out the window if the representation is harmful or if the quote unquote representation is just like stereotypical, like needlessly stereotypical. But I do think when it comes to things like the autism Barbie, some people who have autism do really, really relate to that Barbie. And I think that it's better for us to have that starting point that we can like then jump off from and build off from than it is to not have any of it. at all. So I just really think it's impressive that Barbie has diversity in, again, so many ways: the skin, the hair, the eyes, the face shapes, the body shapes, the like height differences, the like limb differences, the different abilities. Like there's just so much diversity from Barbie. And I wanted to highlight one more comment because I think that this really shows why that's important. I think that for some people, and like this isn't an attack or anything, this is just an observation. And this is something that I'm observing for myself too, because you can probably notice I'm extremely pale. I'm very white. And so I've never experienced any sort of racial discrimination, for example. I've experienced other sorts of discrimination being someone who's bisexual and non binary, but I have never experienced that particular type of discrimination. And the reason that I say that is because I think that sometimes people who have less experience with being hated or being mistreated simply because of something that you can't control might not realize how important having diversity in something like dolls is. And again, that's not like a condemnation. Some people just like have a privileged life and don't have to think about that. And I don't think that that's something that they should get hate for. Hence why, if you happen to be watching this and you happen to be someone who can relate to that statement, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. But I do think it's good to like think about these things. And I just thought that this person's comment really illustrated why diversity matters. So this person is referencing something that Barbie used to have where you could like order a custom Barbie. It was called My Design Barbie. Important to note, as they said, that their family is multiracial. And so they are referencing their sister and said, I will never forget my sister staring at that doll and going, she looks like me, but she's beautiful, as if it had never occurred to her that someone could look like her and be beautiful at the same time. And you can hear that I'm getting choked up, but like, I just think that's such an amazing thing that Barbie was able to give that to someone for the first time. And that's why diversity matters, is because for people who look like me, who have always felt represented by Barbie, for example, like Barbie started off as a white girl. There's never been a moment in my life where, growing up, I was like raised as a little girl. There was never a moment where I was like, oh, Barbie's not like me. Barbie was always like me, but not everyone got to have that. And so the fact that as Barbie's diversity grows, more people get to experience that. I'm like getting emotional, but I think it's really beautiful that more people can experience seeing themselves in a doll, and they can have toys that look like them, and they can have toys that they find beautiful that can look like them. And so that can help them feel better about how they themselves look in a world that oftentimes does not appreciate or value features that aren't stereotypically white features. Diversity does really matter. And I can say anything I want about Barbie, and like I will continue to do that. I will continue to critique Barbie, but the fact that she is giving people moments like that where they can look at a doll and feel seen and feel represented will always matter. And then on a somewhat lighter note, the third and final reason we're going to be discussing for this video as far as why it is that people love Barbie is simply nostalgia. And I called this one a mile away, right? Of course, people are nostalgic for Barbie. But what I think is really interesting is that a lot of the nostalgia specifically seems to center around the Barbie movies. Quote, Barbie was literally my childhood. I watched Barbie movies religiously and played with the dolls that came with the movies, and it was so magical, which is just so cute. Like, obviously, there is the playing aspect, like, the dolls are still part of that. But I think it is really sweet that the movies sort of spurred on that play and spurred on the love. I just think it's very wholesome. Another person wrote a very similar thing. I grew up loving the Barbie movies and mostly played with the movie dolls, which, like, same. I also loved the Barbie movies growing up, and definitely some of the dolls that I have the most nostalgia for are the Barbie movie dolls. There are several more that I would really love to get to add to the collection. Perhaps most notably, a special shout out to user Fart7361. I wouldn't call myself a Barbie fan necessarily, but I really love a lot of the Barbie movies. And I think that truly just speaks to the cultural hold that Barbie used to have. Like, that people who don't even care about the brand as a whole, like the movies and like the media, Barbie used to be popping off. But it isn't just the media. I just thought it was funny that like so many people mentioned the movies specifically. One other person wrote, and I thought this was just like so sweet, it hurt my heart. To me, Barbie is associated with my grandma and being a kid. And I think that's really beautiful. I think it's lovely that we can have nostalgia for old dolls that we used to have from Barbie when we were growing up, or we can have nostalgia for the movies that we got to see from Barbie growing up, Or that nostalgia can bleed into the connections that we have with other people, where it's like maybe you had a family member who was really into Barbie, like that person did. And so it becomes something that is not only you're nostalgic for the dolls, but it reminds you of spending time with that person. Or it could just be friends. Maybe you played constantly with your friends with Barbie as a kid. And so now when you think about Barbie, it's not just the dolls, but it's also the people that you got to bond with and like the play times that you got to have. I don't know. I just think it's really wonderful and really beautiful that Barbie can encapsulate so much. And like, she's clearly not just a doll in this way. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we look at everything all together, Barbie is a doll that can embody any role and you can assign any role to her and she will fit it. And so she encourages imaginative play and she encourages imaginative play with your friends, with your family. And so you can build connection in that way. And perhaps, you want like a little bit of a starting off point. Perhaps coming up with characters isn't exactly what you want, but she had beautiful movies so you could watch those and enjoy those, and those could spur you on to enjoy play again with like friends or family, or even just by yourself having fun in your own little world. And now as the years go on and like we keep continuing to see growth in this area from Barbie, at least the increased diversity means that those moments are less and less withheld from people who don't fit the stereotypical white cishet standard. Like, it just means that more and more people can feel that magic and more people can see themselves represented in Barbie. And it also means that our creative world with Barbie can be populated by a much more broad cast of characters and a much more interesting cast of characters for that. So while, again, as I've said before, I have my reservations for Barbie, mainly when it comes to the like quality that she's at today, and also just the fact that I personally prefer dolls that are more heavily character based. So the fact of her being so malleable isn't something that appeals like to me personally. I can see why it appeals to so many people, and I can definitely see why Barbie as a brand means so much to so many people. And I do think reading through all these comments and talking about this made me like a little bit more favorable towards Barbie. Like, it made me feel a little bit nicer to her, maybe a little bit like, okay, girl, I know you're in a rough patch right now, but I can be a little nicer, I guess. Not that I'm ever gonna gas up a doll who doesn't deserve it. But I don't know. I just thought it was really sweet to read all of you gushing about why you love Barbie and talking about what she means to you. This was super, super fun to do. If you didn't see the post or, just want to continue the discussion in the comments down below about why you love Barbie, absolutely please feel free to do so. Once again, I would like to remind you that the Bratz post is going to be live. So if you're a Bratz fan, pop over there. Maybe I'll end up using your comment in the Bratz video. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.